Ladies and gentlemen, gather round, anime fans. Prepare for a tale of pure, unfiltered, American-style awesome. We're diving into the complete story of the one, the only, the guy who probably bench presses boulders for fun, Inosuke Hashibira. Now, picture this, deep in the mountains, a baby is found and raised not by humans, but by a freaking boar. That's right, our boy Inosuke started off feral, a total wild child who thought he was the king of the hill. He was like if a WWE superstar was homeschooled by the wilderness itself. He lived by one rule: fight everything. He was all gas, no brakes, a tornado of tusks and testosterone with a boar head mask to hide the face he didn't think was tough enough. Sound familiar? It's that armor we all put on, that tough guy act to hide the parts of ourselves we're not sure about. Ladies and gentlemen, let's dive deep into the first and most incredible arc of our boar-headed hero, his transformation from a feral beast into a noble warrior. This isn't just a change in fighting skill, it's a fundamental rewrite of his very soul, a journey from a solitary, me, to a collective, us. Picture the starting point: Inosuke Hashibira, raised not in a home, but in the untamed wilderness by a boar. This isn't a cute Disney story, it's a brutal survival tale. He learned the world's rules through tooth and claw. His entire identity was built on a single, brutal principle: the strong survive, and the weak perish. He was the self-proclaimed king of his mountain, a title he defended with relentless violence. When we first meet him, he's less a human being and more a force of nature, a tornado of aggression, screaming about his own greatness, challenging anyone and anything to a fight just to prove his dominance. He's like that raw, untamed, and slightly terrifying talent you see in a street fighter: all power, no discipline, and a massive, fragile ego to hide the fact that he has no idea who he really is. His entire persona was a fortress. The boar head wasn't just a mask, it was his walls. It hid the surprisingly refined and human features he was ashamed of, features that didn't match the beastly image he needed to project. He couldn't read, he couldn't write, he barely understood human social cues. His world was simple: see a demon, charge. See a strong-looking guy, charge. His initial, beast-breathing, style was a direct reflection of this: wild, chaotic, and self-taught, relying entirely on his unique sense of touch and feral instincts to overwhelm his opponents. It was effective, but it was unsustainable. It was the fighting style of someone who had never had a teacher, never had a partner, never had a friend. The catalyst for his change, the wrecking ball that started to tear down his fortress, was, ironically, a boy defined by his gentleness, Tanjiro Kamado. Their first fight was a seismic shock to Inosuke's entire worldview. Here was someone who wasn't just strong, but strong with a purpose Inosuke couldn't comprehend. Tanjiro fought to protect others, not to feed his own ego. When Tanjiro headbutted him, a move so primal yet so defiant, it was the first crack in Inosuke's armor. He wasn't just being beaten, he was being challenged on a philosophical level. Then came the concept of the herd. Thrown together with Tanjiro and Zenitsu, Inosuke was forced into the first social unit of his life. At first, he saw them as rivals, as subordinates, or just as nuisances. But slowly, through shared near-death experiences, a grudging respect began to grow. He witnessed Tanjiro's unwavering compassion, even for demons. He saw Zenitsu, despite his cowardice, stand and fight when it mattered. He began to experience the one thing he never had: backup. He learned that having someone watch your back didn't make you weak, it made you invincible. This is where his nobility began to blossom. His purpose for fighting began to subtly shift. It was no longer just about being the strongest. It was about protecting his herd. He started to understand the value of the lives beside him. Remember his fight against the upper moon demon, Doma. He wasn't fighting for glory, he was fighting with a burning, desperate rage to avenge Shinobu Kocho and protect what was left of his friends. This was a rage born of care, not just mindless aggression. The ultimate symbol of his transformation was the moment he finally, willingly, took off his boar mask. It wasn't just to use his spatial awareness in a tight spot, it was him shedding his old identity. He was showing his comrades his true face, trusting them with his vulnerability, and proving that the real Inosuke Hashibira, the human, not the beast, was the one who would lead them to victory. He evolved from a lone wolf into a pillar of a team. He learned to coordinate, to strategize, and to value the strengths of others. His beast-breathing techniques evolved, becoming more refined and controlled, just like his spirit. He went from a boy who only knew how to take, to a man who understood the profound strength it takes to give, to protect, to serve, and to stand by your friends until the very end. That, right there, is the mark of a true noble warrior. Let's talk about the engine that drives our boar-headed hero, the raw, unfiltered power of can-do that defines so much of the American spirit. We're talking about Inosuke Hashibira's no-quit attitude. This isn't just a character trait, it's his entire operating system. If Inosuke was an American, his catchphrase wouldn't be a fancy Japanese technique name, it would be a defiant, "hold my beer," right before he charges headfirst into a problem that would make anyone else run for the hills. Think about the classic underdog stories we love. The kid from the wrong side of the tracks who, through sheer grit and determination, proves everyone wrong. Rocky Balboa getting pummeled but refusing to stay down. John McClane in Die Hard, battered, barefoot, and still telling the bad guys, "Yippee-ki-yay." Inosuke is cut from that exact same cloth. He doesn't have a legendary bloodline like some of his peers. He wasn't born with a unique, inherited power. What was he given? Nothing. He took everything he has. He carved his own fighting style out of the wilderness with his own 2 hands. His beast breathing is the ultimate symbol of self-made success, a style born not from tradition, but from necessity, instinct, and an absolute refusal to be taught or tamed. This attitude manifests in every single one of his battles. He is the embodiment of the phrase, brute force and ignorance, and somehow, it works. When he faces the spider demon, father, his swords break. Does he retreat? Does he panic? No. He puffs out his chest, flexes his muscles, and decides he's going to punch the demon to death. When he's trapped inside a tiny, collapsing house, his large swords are a liability. Does he wait to be rescued? No. He abandons them, adapts in a split second, and decides to fight with the broken stubs, creating a whole new technique on the fly. It's that beautiful, almost stupidly brave American improvisation. It's the equivalent of a mechanic fixing a spaceship with a paperclip and duct tape. It shouldn't work, but the sheer audacity makes it possible. His no-quit spirit is also deeply tied to his ego, but in a strangely positive way. He genuinely believes he is the strongest, smartest, and most magnificent being in any room. While this is often hilarious, that unshakable self-confidence is a weapon. It's a classic case of, fake it till you make it, but Inosuke isn't faking it. He fully believes it, and that belief becomes his reality. It allows him to walk into fights against upper moon demons, beings of unimaginable power, without a shred of the fear that would paralyze a normal person. This isn't just recklessness, it's a profound form of mental toughness. He never, ever considers the possibility of defeat. In his mind, every setback is temporary, every obstacle is just another mountain to conquer. He is the master of his own destiny, a self-proclaimed king who bows to no one, and that ironclad will is a power as formidable as any breath style. It's a reminder that sometimes, the most important battle is the one inside your own head, and Inosuke wins that one every single time. Let's pull back the layers on one of the most iconic and psychologically profound elements of our wild boy, that boar head. On the surface, it's a terrifying, bizarre piece of armor. But look closer, and you'll see it's so much more. It's the ultimate symbol of the tough exterior we all construct to hide our vulnerabilities, a fortress built to protect a soft and uncertain core. Think about the first time you saw him. The mask is his entire identity. He's not Inosuke, he's the boar-headed guy. It's his brand, his intimidation factor, his entire personality. The roaring, the chest beating, the constant, screaming declarations of his own greatness, all of it is amplified and filtered through that fearsome visage. It's his suit of armor, not against demons, but against the world. He uses it to project an image of untamable, feral strength, because that's the only kind of strength he understands. He was raised in a world without softness, without comfort, without love. To be soft was to be weak, and to be weak was to die. So, he built the toughest, loudest, most aggressive shell imaginable. But the genius of his character is the slow, beautiful cracking of that shell. The mask isn't just hiding his face, it's hiding his humanity. Remember, this is a young man with surprisingly delicate, almost pretty features that, in his mind, betray the beastly image he needs to project. He's ashamed of them. He believes that to be strong, he must look strong, and his real face doesn't fit that mold. It's a feeling so many of us can relate to. We put on our own masks every day, the mask of confidence when we're nervous, the mask of indifference when we're hurt, the mask of having it all together when we're falling apart inside. We create personas to navigate a world we fear might not accept our true, imperfect selves. The pivotal moments in Inosuke's growth are marked by the removal of the mask. It's never casual, it's always a moment of extreme vulnerability or necessity. The first real, significant time he takes it off is during the fight against the demon in the Natagumo mountain arc, when he's trapped and needs to use his enhanced sense of touch. But even then, it's a tactical choice. The true emotional weight comes later, as his bond with Tanjiro and Zenitsu solidifies. He begins to let his guard down around them. We see his mask off more frequently, not just in battle, but in moments of rest and recovery. He starts to trust them with the face he was once so ashamed of. This culminates in his final, symbolic shedding of the persona. After his fierce and emotional battle, he stands before his comrades, not as the king of the mountain, but simply as Inosuke Hashibira. The boar head is gone. The screaming bravado has softened into loyal, steadfast determination. He has learned that his true strength wasn't in the mask he wore, but in the heart that beat beneath it. He realized that his friends didn't follow him because he was the loudest or the scariest, they stood by him because of who he was when the performance stopped. His journey teaches us that courage isn't about never feeling scared or insecure, it's about finding the strength to finally take off the mask and trust that the right people will love the real you that's underneath. Let's talk about the most powerful transformation in Inosuke Hashibira's life, a shift that redefined his very soul, the journey from a lone wolf to a brother, from a solitary king to a devoted member of a found family. This isn't just a subplot, it's the emotional core of his entire arc. Before his squad, Inosuke's world was a solo act. He was the self-proclaimed king of the mountain, a title that sounds powerful but is profoundly lonely. His entire existence was a brutal, single-player game where the only rule was, look out for number one. He didn't need anyone, he didn't trust anyone, and he saw every other living thing as either a threat, a rival, or prey. He was, in the most tragic sense, completely alone. Then, he crashed headfirst, literally, into Tanjiro Kamado and Zenitsu Agatsuma. This wasn't a meet-cute, it was a chaotic collision of opposites. At first, Inosuke saw them the way he saw everything else, as new challengers to be dominated. Tanjiro was the honorable rival, Zenitsu was the noisy pest. But something happened on the road, through countless battles and shared near-death experiences. He experienced, for the first time, the concept of backup. When he was in a pinch, someone else was there to block a blow. When he was outmatched, a strategy was shouted from the sidelines. This was a revolutionary concept. In his old life, being saved would have been an insult, a sign of weakness. But with them, it just felt like winning. This is the heart of the found family trope we see everywhere in our favorite stories. It's the ragtag crew of the Millennium Falcon, the dysfunctional team in the Avengers, the Brotherhood in Supernatural. It's the idea that the family you choose can be stronger than the one you're born into. For Inosuke, Tanjiro became the unwavering moral compass and the patient older brother he never had, constantly appealing to his buried humanity. Zenitsu, despite their constant squabbling, became a familiar, almost comforting presence, the annoying little brother he loved to torment but would defend to his last breath. Their constant bickering wasn't a sign of dysfunction, it was the sound of belonging. It was the sound of home. He learned to share. He learned to brag not just for himself, but for their group's accomplishments. He learned the meaning of vengeance not for a personal slight, but for a wrong committed against his comrades. His purpose for fighting was completely rewritten. It was no longer, I fight to prove I am the strongest. It became, we fight to protect humanity, and more importantly, I fight to protect them. The lone wolf discovered the strength of the pack. He found his ride or dies, his brothers in arms, the people for whom he would willingly charge into the depths of hell itself. And in finding them, he didn't lose his identity as a fierce warrior, he found a reason to be one that was infinitely more powerful and enduring. He discovered that the greatest strength of all isn't found on a lonely mountain peak, but in the bonds you forge with the people fighting beside you in the valley below.